Hi, this is the final evaluation project submission for 5250 large data visualization class on the ADTA track. This is Ashwin. Basically, I'm just going to present the project work, the final project work, and here we have four separate sessions. So I will be starting with the first section, like the data virtualization with the graphs. Possibly, we have many techniques out here, like data virtualization. Why is this so important in virtualization? Like the graph methodology, it's like innovative and it's widely used in the business and the enterprise data warehouse, like for building reports, dashboards, and various organizations use it for different purposes. So this graphical representation is used for the customers and for the end users, the business, to address large volumes of data, and it in turns help us to give us conclusion or insights of the data, like how what can be done and how the time can be saved, what can be done better and more efficiently. In that way, we can come up with a better relationship. Like in this example, we are going to go with the data virtualization graphs, and this example is going to be with the student and the relationship between it's like basically a parent teacher meeting, like who represented the student, if it's going to be a father or it's going to be a mom, if it's going to be a sibling or if it's going to be a friend. Like the various relationship can be explained in this example. Like I'm just going to explain this one. Like if you see here, there are like separate 25 separate variables I have given. Like these are 25 separate students and they are linked with the sibling, guardian, father or mom. So the green represents the sibling, the pink that represents the mom, the yellow represents the guardian, and the purple represents the father. So this is kind of a chord chart where we relate with the students. Like as discussed, if you see this data, like there are different various students and this is the gender. Basically we are going to derive the score chart, so it's going to be the relationship between the student and the parent, like what how they are related to. So this one we are just using a variable called discussion. Discussion is the points which we derive, and the relation here is like guardian, sibling, father or a mom. Yeah, so this this student, the column A, would be related to column J based upon the discussion. Like how I can just explain how. Like this discussion point, this discussion is like a school parent teachers meeting where someone represents the student for the parent teachers meeting in the school. So it may be a guardian, it may be a sibling, it may be a combination of father and a sibling. I have one example for it, for a student called Marshall, where there are two separate, like two parent, it's like a parent and a sibling who represented them for this discussion at the school. So it's like a split. So when you see the chord chart, I can just show you on the chord chart, like you can just visualize a much greater extent, because it would be a direct relationship if it's going to be a one-to-one, and if it's going to be a one or more people representing the same student, then it will be a connectivity, and that would be called as a cross relationship in a chord diagram. And that's one of the greatest graph tool which we use to relate the student. And for in this example, probably, yeah, in this example, that's a good example to relate the student as well as the concerned party, over maybe it may be a parent, a guardian or a sibling. So let me go back to the presentation. Like this is the chart which I told you, and the green represents the sibling and the pink represents the mom. So sorry, this was not highlighted here, but it's the mom, and this is going to be a guardian, and this is going to be a father. And majority, like if you see the data here, the majority of the students are they are like related to father, because the point of contact for them who represented them in the school was father. I have 25 records, and out of that around 14 records corresponds to father. So in that, like, and you can just see here, like majority of the stuff is going to be a father stuff. So if you see, and it's going to be a one-to-one. So the father, it's highlighted in purple. So all the students who are highlighted in purple are supposed to be like a one-to-one relationship between the student and the father. But in case, like if you see here, like the sibling has a cross relationship where some he has been represented by his father, as well as he has been represented by his sibling. So this student, one of the students here, has a cross relationship. So that's what the percentage of cross relationship, like on the discussion, like on the discussion front, will be derived there in the sections which below. Like basically to explain this chart, like this chart is kind of a node kind of a stuff. Like each nodes, like each arc over here is considered as a node, like a node or a card, like probably since it's a card, yeah, because the various virtualization tools methods call them, because this one was done with different virtualization tool, yeah. So this can be like called as a chord diagram in a Microsoft world, like because this was done in the graph was basically done in a Microsoft Power BI. So once Power BI, like Power BI as a add-on called chord stuff, so you can just install that chord app in Power BI. It's like an add-on. So once you add that one, probably I can just show you that one. So this would be the Power BI present Power BI stuff. So this would be an add-on for the chord diagram. So once you add on this one, and you will be importing the sheet like similar to the Tableau stuff, and like it's going to be a same kind of virtualization, like we can do all the aggregates and all the calculations metrics in Power BI, basically to derive this graph chart. So this graph chart was derived of that tool, and the data set, to tell more about the data set here, this is a data set which was got from the experience API stuff. Like this has the gender, nationality, the academic background, the grade level, but majority of these columns we are not using it, but this can be analyzed furthermore to get more insights of the data. Like we are, this is just a sample, because we just concerned basically on the relationship, on the discussion pattern, like who represented the student for the parent teacher meeting. So that's the major goal of this project, section 1. So basically we are just focusing on 3 variables here: discussion, parents, and the relation. The rest of the variables are useful in order to determine, dig further to check more data. Like I have like educational stage, grade level which you have, and nationality. So based upon school satisfaction too. So based upon, we have number of points to be considered here, but at this point we are just going to explain only the 3 variables which we are supposed to focus on. So if you see here, so consider a student called Marshall, which I told you, like Marshall, he has like overlap. It's like a cost kind of relationship. The Marshall, if you see here, he is linked with mom and the sibling. So we the more percentage of discussion comes from the mom, and the 12%, like 12 discussion points are coming from the sibling. So mom predominantly takes the much higher relationship percentage, and this chart, the chord graph, would be useful to determine the percentage split, like the strength of the, basically it's going to be called as the strength of a relationship. So we can determine the strength of a relationship between using this chord graph. And if you see here, this graph relates each and every types. Like the first one illustrates the father, the second one illustrates the mom, the third one illustrates a relationship between the sibling, and the fourth one relates the relationship between the like the guardian, like how much contribution of these people make in the parent teacher discussion meeting at school. That so from this we can just relate like who contributes how much with respect to each student. So that's the main goal here. Like on the section one of this part, we are just identifying the relationship based on the student and the discussion points. Okay, and that's all about the graph section. Now we are going to go with the section 2, which is going to be the large data set with respect to the crime data. Here we have this crime data in place to give an overview of the crime reporting data track, which the data which they have. It's like collected from the UCR Uniform Crime Reporting Group from the FBI, and it has various statistics over the time frame from 2001 to 2014. It shows up the different crime activities which happen and the reasons why it happened, like the property, like where it happened, like predominantly it takes up like in the streets or in the residence or in the apartment. Like those various factors, we are considering those various factors, and I have like explained like around 3 to 4 cases where we are going to analyze with a tableau report to determine, like based on like if it's going to be a year, then it's going to be like a trend chart, like based upon like how much this year this incidents have happened and all those things. Like let's start off with the first one. So the first one is going to be with the crime with respect to the time period. So here, as I mentioned before, this is going to be data which is captured from 2001 to 2014, and where when you see a chart, so this is a chart like number of crime versus the years. So the 2015 was the best, like best year when compared with the previous years, because until from 2001 to 2014 it was like for probably say 25% or approximately 20 to 25%. But if you see from 2014 to 2015, we have predominantly it's like very much deep curve in the change. So if it's going, it's rounding up to 55 percentage of overall crime rate, which has been reduced, which is very good when compared of previous years. So like as I said, like this 2015, like we have a much less crime reported, and that in turn provides a better satisfaction to the FBI as well as for the police department here on the data. Uh, if you see here, like further digging more on this one, I'm just calculating the sum of records versus the year. So that's all about the first part, like because this is going to be a trend chart between the time period versus the crime. The second part would be like the comparison between the crime and the offense, primary offense type, like what type of offense, like how many type, like there are like around various type of like offenses here, like primary type, like battery, theft, battery, criminal damage, burglar, uh, weapons violation, public place violation, and all those things. Like these are different set of primary types which we have, and out of this, when compared, this chart is across all the years. Um, uh, this chart is across all the years, and so if you see here, it takes the majority. It's going to be theft, and the second one is going to be a battery crime, and third one is going to be a criminal damage, and fourth one is narcotics. So if you see, but the majority first two which will take the maximum stuff. As we go into the data set, we will be exploring further like what causes this theft and what causes this battery, like the in-depth subcategory stuff. But as of now, we just have a high level. From this chart, we can infer like we have the theft details, like category type corresponds to maximum contribution towards the FBI criminal cases. This is across 2001 to 2015. But if you see the next chart, it's particular to 2015. Like this sheet number A is going to be particular for 2015, and this sheet number B it's 2015, and this is going to be a subcategory, like out of this primary type, which type contributes the maximum theft. So if you see here, in if you come back to chart A, like as I told you, for 2015 it's around 32,404 cases, and on the battery theft it's going to be 29,597 cases. Out of this, like we just went in depth and analyzed, so we see here like in on upon analyzing more, we just saw like the 500 and under theft, it's going to be like 14,449, and over $500 it's going to be like 6,933. Yeah, when compared to the battery thefts, like battery theft, what we say as a battery theft is like unlawful conduct, or where they create some kind of bad behavior kind of a stuff, like all these things will be considered as a battery theft, like aggravated, like all the various like violences related to like gun violence or something, gun violence or attack with a knife, this would be considered as a battery theft. So this would be when considered this one, like for a battery theft we have domestic battery violation is like 15,003, and the simple it's going to be 9,443. So these two stuff, like because if you see here the battery and theft contributes to maximum percentage, so the first two stuff over here and the first two stuff over here contributes the maximum percentage of the criminal activities happening with this data set out here. And FBI needs to focus, FBI and the state police department needs to focus on these two parameters, like basically the theft and the battery, domestic battery violence, to make sure like the number of cases even gets further down when compared to 2015, which is already being done. That's good, but 2016 it can be a much more better solution if a recommendation, if like FBI and the state police department checks on the theft and the battery violences. Here, the next one, we are just going on with the primary offense type, like with respect to the FBI code. Like we have FBI code related to
The FBI code and the primary type is used to compare against the number of criminal cases in the year of 2015. in this chart, you can see like the trend goes from green to red. Green means like a less number of cases, and red being the worst. So we have like around 32,404 cases, and by the next would be like around 25,442 cases for the battery theft. So these are the two components which are predominantly occupying the higher volume of criminal cases in 2015. And this can be illustrated using a heat map where we find like the stepwise information which is color coded and easy to present, where when checked with the business, like if a business firm wants to analyze more on this data, it will be easy for them to understand the data basically by the color coding size. So the heat map will be chosen here. And if you see in this diagram, it's like the FBI code primary type versus the criminal cases. Like here we are sorting out based upon the quarter as well. So for this primary type and the FBI code of zero 06, we have a split based upon the quarter values. Like it's based upon the date of when the crime was committed. So basically, it's like which quarter in the date. So it's like quarter 1, 2, or 3. From this information, we can find out like quarter 2 as more number of criminal cases which being recorded. It's going to be 14,321, which is much more higher than any of the data out here in 2015. So this says as a suggestion, or like what we can come up with this data is like a FBI firm or the organization who's investigating on this case can be much cautious on identifying the theft which happens in the Q2. It in turn like more interrogations needs to be done, basically for the theft primary case and the FBI code zero 06. If Q2 can be focused, it will be good. And the next would be based upon the location. Here, the primary type of location we have analyzing which location type was primarily chosen for this committing this crime. So this is overall picture from 2001 to 2015. With on checking the overall picture, we can find out like the crimes committed on the street is more. Next would be the residence, followed by apartment and sidewalk. So and more focus needs to be provided of if in case like analyzed based on location, then the location street violence is more when compared to street violence, and street theft is more when compared to residence, apartment and sidewalk. And the next graph we are going with comparing the location description versus the arrest made. Like there were like most street thefts there were on the previous graph, there were like more residence theft and apartment theft, but out of these not all were arrested. Like around if you see here, this is a street theft, and okay, around 32,404 like in street theft, um 25,778 were not arrested, and 10,433 were arrested. So this in turn tells like the cop or the investigation officers to needs to be more vigilant in arresting or interrogating, investigating the the crime of doers. Like possibly more interrogation needs to be done in order to reduce in upcoming years. Now we are going to discuss about the part 3, multivariate data virtualization. The data visualization here is like a call is multivariate because it has more than one variable. Like considering like it has three dependent variables and one independent variable. So that in turn makes it like we can derive, we can use four separate variables over here. And what method we are going to follow here, it's like um, uh, we have different kind of methods to categorize the multivariate. Here we are going to use the scatter plots. Scatter plots, we do have multiple subtypes in scatter plots, like the scatter plots with line, and we do have a trellis display, and we do have a parallel coordinates plot. I'll just explain you one step by step. Um, and here, starting with it, here we are going to handle the sales data. The sales data, it's going to be the SVP of a company has asked us to come up with a report which states, which categorizes the profit and the sales margin with respect to the region, with respect to the segment, with respect to the category. So we are going to look at those parameters here. To derive, basically here we are going to go with the first one. It's going to be a scattered plot, where thus we are having the average profit on the y-axis and the sales, which is going to be on the x-axis. Like the scatter plot tells us like which region, each, like it's denoted by a different small shape, and it tells us like how many additional measures can be seen here, like plotted again, because this can be a multivariate analysis. The good thing in multivariate analysis, it's like we can just plot more than 3 to 4 variables, and at the same time we can just predict the outcomes, how the variables are behaving for in deriving the dependent variable based upon all the independent variable. That's going to be the profit, region, categories, and the next is coming the segment. So all these are independent variables which derives the sales. So that's the main thing out here. Like if you see here, the category furniture in the central area, um, we have the category, like central area is highlighted in the blue ones. Okay, the blue ones here, we have an this one incurred a loss of 5.97 percentage of loss when compared to the other regions, east, south, and west. So this one, the business is not much active on the furniture area though. So uh, um, the organization or the enterprise doesn't need does need to look at this failure points, like what can be done better to bring this one up. Like on the other hand, we see a very high profit for all the technology areas, especially when you see the east coast, where the profit margin is like around 80.23. And like the next would be like the office supplies. Like the office supplies here, it's giving a much higher margin when compared to other stuff. Like the office margin, here it's like next to technology, here is the technology stuff, and here is the office margin stuff. So the office margin would be the next biggest thing when compared to category wise. The furniture, yes, the furniture doesn't perform that much well when compared to the office or the technology. This in turn means like the corporates or all the organizations can provide much work from home options. Like in that case, the cost of the furniture and all those things can be neglected, because less the investment, less the risk. So I guess this would be a better solution for them to cut down the cost on the furniture, give more, invest more on technology where they see more profits. So that's the one thing. And the next one is, it's going to be the release display. The release display chart is going to be like cut down, a small chart which is cut down into different categories. Like we have four the categories here: furniture, office supplies, and technology. So we are just cutting down the four regions, like independent variables: central, east, west coast, east, west, and south. So we are just cutting based upon the categories to find out the independent chart, like individual squares, so we can analyze like how much percentage is going on what. And basically here we have like a 0k mark on the center line, so that in turn like makes like we do have a positive impact or a negative impact based on each office category. It can be analyzed out here. Like if you see here, this is going to be the office supplies and the 0k mark is right on the center. So if it's going to be other side like minus 5k or plus 5k, this is the profit margin which we have versus the sales. So this is what we are trying to analyze here. The next one will be the parallel coordinates plot. Parallel coordinates plot, it's like we are comparing each variable will compare as an axle here. So it has a own axis parallel to each other in a different scale. So here we are comparing quantitative variables as well as the qualitative variables. Like qualitative variables is going to be the profit, sales, region, category. Here we have plots, sales, profit, region, and category out here. And since each sales can be linked with the profit, region, and the category out here. So this is the percentage and the frequency, the region, central, east, south, west, and the furniture categories like furniture, office supplies, and technology will be much useful to check the frequency and the category based upon this one. And the next chart would be like the average sales segment versus the category. So initially we saw the region and category. Now we are going to split it based upon the segment as well. So the segment is consumer, corporate, or home office. Based upon that, we are just deriving the chart. Like this is going to be the bar chart when compared to the previous one. Like we had a scatter plot or a scatter plot matrix. This is going to be a bar chart representation wise, and we can see like the technology has outperformed in all the four regions. Narrative then coming back to next session. Here we are going to go with the narrative visualization design process. Narrative visualization is like provides a judgment for the results whatever we make, the point we make. This constitutes of 3 points: the visual design, messaging, and the interactivity. We can just go over each section one by one at a time. Like the first, we'll be starting off with the show. Like we need to show the current trends and the data with the image which is going labeled for each visual diagram to the business users and how they understand the process. Like the basically it's a representation of different formats of data which we can showcase to the business in order to navigate or effectively show like what is being done in the graphs. The second one is going to be a messaging, which is going to be tell, like it's going to be a storytelling process, how we are going to tell the overall product, graph and explain them in a much way detailed way that like, it can easily grasp. It's like a self-running a presentation to a large audience, like, and they need to catch up with all the small minute details which in then they can dig deeper to get a better insights of all the data. And if you come up with a live presentation out here, like this is going to be a live presentation on the storytelling process where we can tell the number of questions asked, the frequently asked questions, what they trend follows on each week, and trends by month. So this will be like this will be like much in turn provides better insight of the data. The next one is going to be the individual presentation or a small group presentation where we can present a small to a set of small audience and how to portray the story better in a way. The last thing is going to be engage. Like we need to engage the users to make sure like we are they are much familiar with the process, analyze and decide what they want and what they how is going to be required. This would be essential for the business users to portray stuff to build a KPI mark. If you see, this is going to be a KPI stuff like key performance indicator. So if they want to build the key performance indicator graph like this, they want to engage themselves into the data, understand the data better. In that way they can provide better business solutions and better business requirements for us to get a model and virtualize stuff. The best practices in data visualization, it's like we need to connect all the data. For this one, analysis is the first key which we need to perform. Without analysis nothing can be done. So the analysis first we need to perform, connect all the dots. connect all the experiment, all ask why, experiment all the details and business models. The second one is like bring all the data together. So if it's that's going to be the blending process. If you see the blending process is like data warehouse, data marts, files, all the process we need to put in query results and blend it, and then we are going to present as a virtualization. This would be important to get overall picture like what's required and what's not. In that way, the overall data, if the business wants some new additional data, they can bring in new additional data as well. The third one is going to be the metrics. The metrics is like a key performance indicator, like all the metrics which they want to be a part of dashboards. This will be a part of the metric part. So business needs to come up with what metrics needs to be done, and the last one is going to be the fourth one is going to be a better visualization, like what visualization method we are going to choose, because that impacts the traffic movement patterns, the eye patterns, the map patterns, and all the breakdowns, individual breakdowns depends on the visualization which we make. And we need to last one is going to be the share. We need to share the data, collaborate with other users, um, and come up with a much more innovative way, like collaborate with Google Analytics or Amazon Web Analytics. Like we need to collaborate with different sources to get the virtualization in a better shape that will be useful for the business, and it will be useful for the end user as well. And that's all about the project work. Thank you and have a good day.